thousands here in Arizona witnessed the most documented UFO sighting in the world.
There's these bank of lights, 6 lights, in the shape of a triangle going back right over the airport.
We're talking mile to 8 miles wide, gliding.
And the idea that we saw something that large and that low to the ground that was totally quiet still amazes me.
On March 13th, 1997, from 7:30 until approximately 10:30 p.m., dozens of concerned citizens flooded their local police department phone lines with urgent calls for clarity as they reported seeing floating orbs and a V-shaped craft the size of several football fields hovering above the city of Phoenix, Arizona in the United States. And even though the event happened in March, it didn't become general knowledge until June 18th, 1997, when USA Today put out a brief on their front page. And while the glowing orbs seemed to remain stationary, the V-shaped craft hovered south.
If you saw this in the skies over South Florida, would you call me and say, hey Rob, get a news camera over here, there's something weird going on? Well, these formations appeared last night in the sky over downtown Phoenix, as you see there.
Strangely enough, even though many pilots in the Phoenix area notified air traffic controllers about what they were seeing, none of them saw anything out of the ordinary on their radars.
Air traffic controllers on duty who could see the lights but not see them on radar.
And then just as suddenly as they appeared, the Phoenix lights just went out. Government officials would later claim that these orbs were nothing more than flares being deployed as a military exercise, while the V-shaped craft was apparently a series of aircraft flying in formation.
You know, airplanes dropping flares would have a difficult time getting a perfect triangle time after time.
The key is here is everything we have makes noise. We don't have anything that's quiet. People will say, well, it was stealth. Well, stealth is radar evasive. It has nothing to do with what you hear. It's radar evasive, not sound evasive.
Then Arizona Governor Fife Symington initially mocked the statewide concerns, but later on revealed that he too had seen the enormous craft and claimed that it was not from this world. And we'll circle back to him a little bit later.
Popping. There's one behind the chimney. One just fired up. I got 4 of them. Major sighting here.
The first person to report seeing the Phoenix lights did so at about 6:55 p.m. The man, whose identity still remains unconfirmed, said that he saw a V-shaped formation in the skies near Henderson, Nevada. Then at about 8:15 p.m., a former police officer in Polden, Arizona reported seeing a cluster of orange lights. And these orange lights were referred to by many other witnesses as fireballs. 2 minutes later, other calls came in about a group of white and reddish orbs hovering above Prescott, Arizona. And it now became clear that there were 2 distinct groups of UFOs in the sky that night, one being a group of orbs and the other one being a V-shaped craft.
It was a giant V, all right? And the right side of the V went over us. The left side was like a couple blocks over it.
It was an orangish amber light. And it was so rich and lustrous, it's almost as if the objects seemed to be comprised of the light itself, which is strange.
According to the National UFO Reporting Center, the V-shaped formation contained anywhere from 5 to 7 lights that slowly soared in unison from the northwest before turning almost south. And as the formation moved, one of the lights towards the back allegedly moved to the front before falling back again. The V-shaped formation was famously caught on tape, and it seemed to feature 3 lights on each leg with a 7th light at the tip.
This was one solid object, one craft, one big, large boomerang.
Witnesses who came forward also conservatively stated that it was the length of about 3 football fields, while others stated that it was more than a mile long.
I just didn't know what to do. It was just like, my God, how big is this thing? It didn't seem threatening, because when it was right overhead and we couldn't hear a sound, it was like you're just awestruck.
Another witness was Hollywood movie star Kurt Russell, who is also a licensed pilot, and during an interview he stated that he also saw the lights while flying his private plane into Phoenix on March 13th, 1997.
Well, there's 6 lights in a row. And they said, do you want to report this? And I said, look, I can't identify it. It's flying and it's 6 objects.
Phoenix Councilwoman Frances Barwood became the first official to publicly demand answers to the Phoenix Lights incident.
Everybody just kind of turned around and looked at me like, why did you ask that? And it was like this silence. And I felt kind of uneasy. And then one of the other council members made some kind of a joke. And they went on. They didn't assign me 2 staff members. They didn't say who was going to look into it. They didn't say who was going to get back to me.
The local government then called on the Air Force to investigate. However, the US Air Force stated that it had been prohibited from doing so after Project Blue Book, which was an investigative service set up after the 1947 Roswell crash, shut down in 1969.
You know, when you have like 700 to 1 saying this was not airplanes, I had active military, retired military, police officers, firemen, Little League coaches that were out that night with the whole Little League side, the parents side, people jogging, people shopping.
The then governor, Fife Symington, as mentioned earlier, claimed that he'd never heard of the incident and finally scheduled a press conference on June 19, 1997 to address it. And during the press conference, to the relief of reporters and the distress of witnesses, Symington claimed that the government had captured an alien, and he then proceeded to bring his chief of staff, a man by the name of Jay Haler, onto the stage dressed up in an alien costume.
And now I'll ask Officer Stein and his colleagues to escort the accused into the room so that we may all look upon the guilty party. Don't get him too close to me, please.
In the alien costume, the governor's chief of staff.
Now, this just goes to show that you guys are entirely too serious.
However, in 2007, Symington, in numerous interviews, claimed that he thought that UFOs were real, and he rationalized his dismissive press conference by claiming that he tried to calm down his constituents who were on the brink of hysteria.
Unquestionably, it was a UFO, which means unidentified flying object.
It doesn't mean we're being visited.
Well, it's nothing like anything I've ever seen.
And you're an Air Force guy.
Yeah, and a pilot.
Unfortunately, Symington's press conference had made the Phoenix Lights a point of ridicule to many, and consequently respectable witnesses such as Phoenix physicians Dr. Brad Evans as well as Dr. Lynne Kitei were forced to bite their tongues.
So beyond anything I ever imagined being here on this earth. To date, the Phoenix Lights phenomenon has never been recreated or explained.
In recent years, skeptics like former Air Force pilot James McGaha provided their own earthly explanations for the event, saying that the V-shaped craft was likely a group of A-10 airplanes flying in formation, and that flares were basically the orbs and fireballs that people reported.
People see lights in the sky, and somehow they equate those lights in the sky to spacecraft from another world. It's really wish fulfillment. It's almost a fairy tale among many people.
One of the problems, however, is that A-10 airplanes are not silent, and as a result, many people have denounced that explanation.
We're talking mile to 8 miles wide, gliding silently, some at a distance, but most at rooftop level. Some people said they could have thrown a rock at it. It was that close.
Another explanation is that it was a group of skydivers known as the Arizona Skyhawks who jumped out of a plane with magnesium flares for a show. However, with the government's recent release of UFO-related intel, many tend to believe that the Phoenix Lights incident was otherworldly.
Mr. Gresh, finally, do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
In conclusion, the Phoenix Lights incident is probably one of the most significant UFO sightings in history, not only due to the amount of people who saw it, but also due to the amount of video footage from a single incident. I also recently did a segment about the Ariel School UFO incident where 62 school children claimed to have seen a UFO in Rua, Zimbabwe back in the 1990s, and I'll drop the link in the description below. But with regards to this incident, let me know what you think, whether or not it was real, or whether or not there's some other type of explanation for what those people in Phoenix saw back in March of 1997. And as always, thanks for watching.
you.